So I imagine the 20th of October 2023 will go down in history as another day in which the government of this country, the Conservative government, have whitewashed a very important moment in which Andrew Bridgen stood up trying to get people interested in the fact that there have been a rather large swathe of unusual excess deaths in the figures from the ONS. And although in the past, on the 13th of December and the 17th of March, we'd seen an empty house, there were a few more people turning up, a few more MPs. I counted 15, but that included 3 mysterious people who sat on a gallery to the side of the main chamber. So maybe they weren't MPs. I don't know who they were. Perhaps they were people from the House of Lords officially overlooking, is what I've been told. So I don't really know if that is the case. At least there were a few more than in the past, except that my viewers, of course, have been writing to their MPs saying this is absolutely vital. We demand you to turn up because there are a lot of people dying, people who have had loved ones suddenly die for some unknown reason, perfectly healthy people, and yet they had perhaps a heart attack and collapsed, or they've been harmed, seriously harmed, as a result of possibly taking something that was administered to the whole country and indeed the whole world. Now, of course, not everybody has taken it, but it does seem from the figures that the people who have taken this thing have had certain problems, let's say, and if it is the medical intervention that we all know and dread, then maybe we should be, well, certainly we should be talking about it. And I've been talking about this week non-stop. Well, Andrew Bridgen turned up and he managed to get his debate in to the House of Commons, and of course it was televised. I sat and watched it live on the parliamentary channel. Many other people did, and people have sent me various emails, and it's been fascinating to read them, and thank you very much for sending those in. But what I don't have is a proper television. I don't have a BBC licence, so I don't watch the BBC. I don't know what they put out, what propaganda they put out. Well, a contact of mine got in touch with a series of still shots because he was somewhat flabbergasted. And I want to have a look at those. Maybe you saw these, maybe you watched the parliamentary debate on the BBC, or maybe you watched it on some other system. Perhaps you watched it on YouTube or anything else that put it out after. Or maybe you didn't even watch it at all and just thought, well, good old Andrew, he's managed to say a few things. Perhaps you read the transcript, which would have been in Hansard. I can tell you that at the end of his speech, if you didn't see it, the public gallery in the House of Commons, which I think is supposed to be behind protective glass, whether that's soundproof or not, I don't know. Certainly wasn't soundproof because there was enough people in there who gave an amazing, riotous cheer to Andrew at the end that everybody in the chamber below looked up somewhat astonished. And I think that gave them a very important message that we know what you're up to. We know that you're lying to us. We know that you are responsible and we hold you culpable for all these deaths if you do not debate it. So maybe some of those who were sitting there thinking, thank God I actually turned up. Because really and truly that was aimed not only at the government, who were whitewashing the whole speech and saying, oh, nothing to see here, we don't think it's anything to do with the medical intervention. There's plenty of other things such as dementia and a flu epidemic and all these other things that are supposedly have created this rather large and excess of deaths in all sorts of different ages. But Andrew was just using the figures supplied by the Office of National Statistics and showing where in the Office of National Statistics they weren't very helpful in the way that they collated the data in some of the metrics that they used. But it was the BBC that were putting up the propaganda during the broadcast. And thanks to Nigel, who sent in these interesting still shots from his television screen, I wanted to show you. So this is how it started out with Andrew Bridgen as you can see there live, BBC Parliament, House of Commons, Andrew Bridgen from the Reclaim Party now, Leicestershire North West, and its debate was the trends in excess deaths. Okay, so far nothing unusual. He starts speaking about the problems with the medical intervention is all I'm going to use the word, you know what I mean. And then, of course, the BBC were putting, instead of what he was saying as a transcript for those who were perhaps hard of hearing or deaf or were watching silently in an office somewhere, you know, as people often do on YouTube, they put up their own, well, the government's Ofcom's regulated narrative. Official NHS guidance states that government-administered vaccines are safe and often essential for public health. Now, he was arguing that there may be a problem with this medical intervention, and yet the BBC, okay, so you get one message. That's fine, isn't it? You know, you're getting the counter message. I have no problem with that. But it went on throughout the whole talk, throughout the whole 20-minute speech that Andrew gave. The NHS says that COVID-19 vaccines used in the UK are safe and the best protection from getting seriously ill with the disease. That is absolutely contrary to what Andrew was saying. It goes on. Most people with allergies, including food or penicillin allergies, can be vaccinated against COVID-19. Well, I don't think there's any argument there to say that they can be. It's whether they should be. I mean, people who have one leg and a nose missing, perhaps their ears have big cauliflower sticking out of them. Well, maybe they can be given the medical intervention. Of course, perhaps even if they were prostrate, not breathing, they could be given the vaccine. But should they? That was the question. It goes on, though. It goes on. It says here, NHS guidance states that these things do not cause autism. There is no evidence of a link between the MMR, thingamajigamy, and autism. That's what they claim, but other people claim that's not so. Many people who have had perfectly healthy children who went fairly recently and had that three-initialed medical intervention for their children have discovered that their children are now behaving somewhat differently. And I can confirm that somebody very dear to me's children have had exactly that. Now, not saying it's with everybody, but I'm saying that actually, it's funny, isn't it? People say that, oh, you must be an anti-vaxxer. Well, I'm getting very close to that, to be honest with you. The more information that comes out, I put on my channel only the other day a booklet from 1850, I think it was, showing about the smallpox medical intervention, in which more people were having excess deaths as a result of taking that. It makes you feel that actually anything that man seems to do, messing about with the body, with their chemicals and things, has not actually really helped at all. It seems the natural immune system, that if we were to eat less processed foods, less poisoned water, fresh, clean air without all the graphene and various other bits and pieces that have been shoved into it, if we were to eat organic food from soil that's not been adulterated, seems to me that actually we wouldn't have half the diseases and problems that we have, and mostly in this modern world also helped along by, say, nefarious people who wish to depopulate the planet or make us ill for commercial reasons so that they can sell boxes and boxes of white pills or various injections for money. That to me seems to be the big issue. Let's just have a look at a few more of these. Here we go. Andrew continues, and so does the propaganda from the BBC. NHS vaccines, it says, do not overload or weaken the immune system, including those for children. Well, I'm not too sure about that. Maybe when you look at the World Council for Health and the research that they've done, they have come up with a conclusion that these medical interventions are actually completely unhelpful for children. Goes on, the official medical intervention do not cause allergies or other conditions and do not contain mercury. I don't know about the mercury contaminant, maybe that is. And the NHS says that people with allergies to things like eggs and gelatine should speak to doctors before taking the vaccines. Well, curiously, I think we found out that eggs were very good against the spike protein, proper, good, wholesome, organic eggs, along with those patches that you put on your arms if you are one of those people that do a bit of smoking. The product that's inside that actually is supposed to, and I can't put my hands up and say it's 100% correct, but is supposed to be very good at getting rid of some of the effects of those medical interventions. That's what I've heard. It may be wrong. I'm not saying that's a fact. Anyway, this goes on, and I don't need to read all of them. Basically, it goes on and on and on. It says since these things were introduced in the UK, diseases like smallpox, polio and tetanus have been eradicated or very rare. Well, that may or may not be true. We don't know. I don't know how true that is. But look, you can see the pictures of how empty the chamber was. There's two people there on the Labour bench, one right back hidden in the corner, so you could almost not identify him. And so it goes on, da-di-da-di-da, da-di-da-di-da. Anyway, there's enough of that to worry about. So the BBC still putting out the propaganda, of course, that there's nothing to see here, everything's safe and effective, and you should be taking it. And yet, everywhere else you go, apart from the mainstream media and the government, who now seem incredibly isolated, you're seeing people going, there's a problem. We should be looking at this. Perhaps we shouldn't be rolling it out. Perhaps we should have second thoughts. Perhaps we should analyse what's in it. Maybe it would be helpful if we were to actually isolate the virus at the very start. But from what I understand, the virus has not been isolated at all. And therefore, we can't possibly know what it's about. And if it's not been isolated, is it really a thing? Is it something to actually worry about? Or is it something else that we are detoxing from? Who knows? Maybe you do. Anyway, there we are. I'm indebted to Andrew Bridgen for going bravely to doing that speech. I'm indebted to Nigel, who sent me the slides from the Houses of Parliament, from the BBC, as it went out, the screenshots, and of course to everybody else who has on this channel been influenced to write to their MP. But as I said yesterday, whether they've turned up or not, as of this moment, to me, anything that happens now as a result of being injected with this serum, and if people do continue to die mysteriously and the government will not debate this, then it's in the hands of the MPs. The MPs are culpable. And to me, that is a murderous position to be in. We do need to tell them, we know what you're doing. We know that you are in bed with the WEF and the WHO. We know that you are working for a for-profit business, a corporation. We know that you're not an assembly of people who are there to govern us. We know that everything you're doing is anti-human. We know that you have your own agenda. We're watching you, and by golly, sooner or later, we will get rid of you, all of you, and have a different system of looking after ourselves. And at one point, sooner or later, you will be given a length of rope.